information. I haven't read through many of these ahead of time, but they all get put up on the website, and they're all usually pretty good. And then just for some reference on the case studies, each university or college participating can only submit one, but since it would kind of serve as a service project for your community, I would suggest, if 3 teams want to do a case study, I think that's totally okay. And as long as you pick one of them to submit, it will be up for an award against all the peer institutions. But, ideally these 3 projects will all just do something good for the community.
How many people are usually in a group at Central?
So it's been done quite differently in recent years. So 2 years ago we did a really cool case study where how did we do it? So once a week, for some background information, CMU gets sent all of our landfill and recycling weights for each dumpster on campus. And so what we had done is we took the 4 residential communities on campus, and then we figured out the recycling per capita at each of those residential communities. And so we had the 4 compete against each other. And that required a lot of manpower because we had people sending us the weights, like sustainability advocates on campus who live in these residential communities. And then we were basically dividing those by the number of people. So we had to reach out to all of the residence halls and figure out how many students and staff were working and living in these buildings. And so we had that number. And then we did all the math and all the promotion each week and gave people updates. So your community is at 4 pounds of recycling per person per week or something like that. And so that required a lot of people. This year we're trying something a little bit easier where so basically at CMU, composting is very accessible for students when they eat in the dining halls, but you can't really compost much even if you live in the residential halls. So we are once a month at CMU in front of the University Center putting out a composting bin and just doing some advertising to see if we can get some students in the residence halls composting. And that's more of a 2-person project because we're just Meghan and I are working with one of the individuals in facilities who's providing us with a bin, and we're going to see if it fills up, and then we're going to weigh it and deliver it back to him. But hopefully if we look at a couple here, you'll have a better idea of the scope and the scale of some of these. Oh, and then just for instance, here are a couple of the winners from last year. So you're highlighted on the website, you're highlighted on the Campus Race to Zero Waste social media. So they have a Facebook page if you do want to go follow them. And then down here are different case studies. So let me pick out a couple cool ones. And we're not going to click into any of these unless any of you want to, but they all have pretty brief descriptions here that are pretty informative. So Carnegie Mellon University, this first one last year, they did a fix-it-fair mending workshop to teach people how to repair items. Kind of similarly, we've seen other universities do clothing swaps where they just plan an event where people can bring in old clothes, pick up old clothes for free, just helping people in need. Same thing kind of what CMU is doing this year. The College of Staten Island last year, they did it looks like they did an outdoor composting drive, kind of starting their own compost pile, which is actually how composting started at CMU. It was for the Campus Race to Zero Waste in about 2012, where some students wanted to start a composting pile on campus, and then by doing that, it kind of proved to facilities that they could actually save money by composting because they were not spending the same amount of money on landfill pickups, and now it's evolved into a massive program.
You've gone from people with a bucket 10 years ago to taking a semi up to Morgan's every couple of days.
Yeah.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Man.
What kind of food is being composted? Everything?
Everything.
Okay.
Yep. So it was so successful that we are actually the only university that Morgan's composting will take food waste from. But the reason that is successful is because everything that we order for the dining halls at CMU is compostable, from the napkins to the coffee sugar packets to all of the food. And so when a student walks into a dining hall, they can't even grab any new materials that aren't compostable. And so we don't even have trash bins in our dining halls because everything on their plate's going to go in that compost bin.
Okay.
Have you heard of Morgan's composting? Anybody? Tell us a little bit about Morgan's. What do they do with the compost?
Have you heard Dairy Do commercials? That's the company that it comes from. It's mainly turned into fertilizer and sold to farmers. Actually, CMU buys back the composted materials, and it's used to like fertilize our gardens, or even the marching band practice field is completely fertilized by Morgan's composting. So again, it's like the circular economy. Like our waste then comes back to us for use.
Yeah.
So even some of these case studies can be even simpler. So like University of Nebraska-Lincoln, that third one here, they designed and implemented a pilot project focused on standardizing recycling efforts. And at different internships I've had and that sort of thing, that's something I notice is a huge problem everywhere, where every recycling bin in every building looks different. And so I don't know if that's the case here, but perhaps fundraising a little bit. You could practice your fundraising and communication skills to have the institution buy similar recycling bins, or even just designing a new recycling poster that you could get approved by your university or college here, and seeing, is it going to match all of the branding guidelines, and so you can work on your skills that way, and just kind of work on a new signage campaign.
What do you know what's going on at, I call it the main campus, the other buildings, in terms of recycling? Because here we've got I see a couple bins here. They look like they're professional-ish.
They just throw it away.
Everything gets thrown.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of, I hear from Jenny Queen Baker, who was, we introduced, and then, and we had some of that issue going on at Sacred Heart, that eventually they said, yeah, we just need to do this. The students are trying to paint up some other things, and they just bought some nice things. But that would be, the other challenge that we've got is that, we're here, this is the last semester that classes are going to be taught in this building and the other ones, and so then that transition stuff. So what's going on at the Pickard building? It would be nice to get some of those things, some momentum moving, so that we can transfer it over there.
Yeah, so there's a lot of logistics to figure out there as well, just kind of brainstorming right now. If everything in this building is going to be relocated, I could even foresee some sort of case study where one or two or three of you design a plan, what's going to happen to each shelving unit in here, just to make sure we minimize what's going into the trash. There's lots of opportunity there. Or if you did want to compete with the other building that's currently functional, you could, someone or two people could drive over there, measure the recycling per capita, and just see really who's doing better over time.
Mm-hmm.
We'll try and find one more interesting one here. So a lot of these, like you see, are kind of hosting free stores for community members, compiling the materials we have, and trying to fundraise donations just to make sure everyone has the resources they need. Grant applications are a great thing you could work on as well. If we do, if I identify any grants that might be useful for this school, I'll send them over, but you guys can find grants anywhere. If you see, there's a grant out there, maybe someone's trying to fundraise to get these water bottle fillers right here. Maybe that's a grant you could apply for and just practice your writing skills a bit. I find that grant writing is probably one of the most useful things I've learned over the past few years. I took CMU's grant writing class 2 years ago, and since I've written 3 grants, I think it's a really fun process, and you're just trying to tell a story with what you're writing and compel someone to fund your project.
Yeah, I would support that. I've never written or received one, but I totally validate. It's one of those things that you wish you'd kind of done more. So if we had that, anybody has been involved with the grant writing of any sort? Yeah, I would definitely support that.
There's also opportunity for community partnerships there if you have anything at the top of your head. So for instance, right now we just completed a grant in our office in partnership with the Mount Pleasant Discovery Museum to host a sustainability camp with children ages 5 through 10 there this summer. And so if it's awarded, we're going to be funded with basically the money to pay student workers to go and teach other smaller students about sustainability. And so you're not limited to just the school here for your case study. It can really be anything if you see opportunity for growth. So basically that's a not so quick overview of the competition, but I think the thing to remember is that there's those four 8-week categories and then 4 special categories, and the case study is incredibly flexible. The electronics drive is pretty simple to put together, but offers opportunities for professional growth. And if everyone here wants to do their own unique case study, I still think that's a really cool service learning project. That's up to your professor. So does anyone have questions?